The story of Jerry and the dog. What I'm going to tell you has something to do with how sometimes it's necessary to go a long distance out of the way in order to come back a short distance correctly. Or maybe I only think that it has something to do with that. But it's why I went to the zoo today, and why I walked northerly rather, until I came here. Alright, the dog. I think I told you is a black monster of a beast. An oversized head, tiny ears, and eyes bloodshot, infected maybe, and a body you can see the ribs through the skin. The dog is black, all black. All black except for the bloodshot eyes, and yes, and an open sore on the right forepaw. It's red too, and yeah, the poor monster, I do believe it's an old dog, is certainly a misused one. Almost always has an erection. Of sorts. It's red too. And what else? Oh, yeah, there's a gray, yellow-white color, too, when he bares his fangs. Like this. Which is what he did when he saw me for the first time. The day I moved in. Now, animals don't take to me like St. Francis had birds hanging off him all the time. What I mean is animals are indifferent to me. Like people. Most of the time. But this dog wasn't indifferent. From the very beginning, he'd snarl and then go for me to get one of my legs. Not like he was rabid, you know? He was just sort of a stumbly dog, but wasn't half-assed either. It was a good, stumbly run. But I always got away. He got a piece of my trouser leg, too. Look, you can see right here where it's mended. He got that the second day I lived there. But I kicked free and got upstairs fast, so that was that. I still don't know to this day how the other roomers manage it, but you know what I think? I think it had to do only with me. Cozy. So, anyway, this went on for over a week, whenever I came in, but never when I went out. It's funny. Or it was funny. I could pack up and live in the street for all the dog cared. Well, I thought about it up in my room one day, one of the times after I'd bolted upstairs, and I made up my mind. I decided, first, I'll kill the dog with kindness. And if that doesn't work, I'll just kill him. Don't react, Peter, just listen. So, the next day I went out and bought a bag of hamburgers. Medium rare. No ketchup, no onion, and on the way home I threw away all the rolls and just kept the meat. When I got back to the rooming house, the dog was waiting for me. I half opened the door that led into the entrance hall, and there he was. Waiting for me. Figures. I went in very cautiously, and I had the hamburgers, you remember. I opened the bag, and I set the meat down about 12 feet from where the dog was snarling at me, like so. He snarled. Stopped snarling. Sniffed. Moved slowly, then faster towards the meat. Well, when he got to it, he stopped, and he looked at me. I smiled, but tentatively, you understand. He turned his face back to the hamburgers, smelled, sniffed some more, and then... like that! He tore into them. It was as if he'd never eaten anything in his life before, except like garbage. Which might very well have been the truth. I don't think the landlady ever eats anything but garbage. But he ate all the hamburgers, almost all at once, making sounds in his throat like a woman. Then, when he'd finished the meat, the hamburger, and tried to eat the paper, too, he sat down and smiled? I think he smiled. I know cats do. It was a very gratifying few moments. Then, BAM! He snarled at me and made for me again. He didn't get me this time either. So, I got upstairs. And I laid down on my bed and started to think about the dog again. To be truthful, I was offended. I was damn mad, too. It was 6 perfectly good hamburgers, with not enough pork in them to make it disgusting. I was offended. But after a while, I decided to try it again, for a few more days. If you think about it, this dog had what amounted to an antipathy towards me, really. And I wondered if I mightn't overcome this antipathy. So I tried it for 5 more days. But it was always the same. Snarl, sniff, move, faster stare, gobble, smile, snarl, bam. Well, now, by this time Columbus Avenue was strewn with hamburger rolls, and I was less offended than disgusted. So, I decided to kill the dog. Oh, don't be so alarmed, Peter. I didn't succeed. The day I tried to kill the dog, I bought only one hamburger, and what I thought was a murderous portion of rat poison. When I bought the hamburger, I asked the man not to bother with the roll. All I wanted was the meat. I expected some reaction from him, like, we don't sell no hamburgers without rolls, or, what do you want me to do, eat it out of your hands? But no, he smiled benignly, wrapped up the hamburger in waxed paper, and he said, a bite for your pussycat? I wanted to say, no, not really. It's part of a plan to poison a dog I know. But you can't say a dog I know without sounding funny, so I said, a little too loud, I'm afraid, and too formally, yes, a bite for my pussycat. People looked up. It always happens when I try to simplify things, people look up. But that's neither here nor there. So, on the way back to the rooming house, I kneaded the hamburger and the rat poison together between my hands. At that point, feeling as much sadness as disgust. I opened the door to the entrance hall, and there the monster was, waiting to take the offering and then jump me. Poor bastard. He never learned that the moment he took to smile before he went for me gave me enough time to get out of range. But there he was, malevolence with an erection, waiting. I put the poison patty down, moved toward the stairs, and watched. The poor animal gobbled the food down as usual, smiled, which almost made me sick. And then, bam! But I sprinted up the stairs as usual, and the dog didn't get me, as usual. And it came to pass that the beast was deathly ill. I knew this because he no longer attended me, and because the landlady sobered up. She stopped me in the hall the same evening of the attempted murder, and confided the information that God had struck her puppy dog a surely fatal blow. She'd forgotten her bewildered lust, and her eyes were wide open for the first time. They looked like the dog's eyes. She sniveled and implored me to pray for the animal. I wanted to say to her, "Ma'am, I have myself to pray for, the colored queen, the Puerto Rican family, the person in the front room who I've never seen, the woman who cries deliberately behind her closed door, and the rest of the people in all rooming houses, everywhere. Besides, ma'am, I don't understand how to pray." But, to simplify things, I told her I'd pray. She looked up. She said that I was a liar, and that I probably wanted the dog to die. I told her, and there was so much truth here, that I didn't want the dog to die. I didn't, and not just because I'd poisoned him. I'm afraid that I must tell you, I wanted the dog to live, so that I could see what our new relationship might come to. Please understand, Peter. That sort of thing is important. You must believe me. It is important. We have to know the effect of our actions. Well, anyway, the dog recovered. I have no idea why, unless he was a descendant of the puppy that guarded the gates of hell or some such resort. I'm not up on my mythology. Are you? At any rate, and you've missed the $8,000 question, Peter. At any rate, the dog recovered his health, and the landlady recovered her thirst, in no way altered by the Bow Wow's deliverance. When I came home from a movie that was playing on 42nd Street, a movie I'd seen, or one that was very much like one I'd seen, or several I've seen, after the landlady told me Puppykins was better, I was so hoping for the dog to be waiting for me. I was, well, how would you put it, enticed? Fascinated? No. That's not it. Heart-shatteringly anxious. That's it. I was heart-shatteringly anxious to confront my friend again. Yes, Peter. Friend. That's the only word for it. I was heart-shatteringly, etc., to confront my doggy friend again. I came in the door and advanced, unafraid, to the center of the entrance hall. The beast was there, looking at me. And, you know, he looked better for his scrape with the Nevermind. I stopped. I looked at him. He looked at me. I think we stayed a long time that way. Still, stone statue, just looking at one another. I looked more into his face than he looked into mine. I mean, I can concentrate longer at looking into a dog's face than a dog can concentrate at looking into mine, or into anybody else's face for that matter. But during that 20 seconds or 2 hours that we looked into each other's face, we made contact. Now, here's what I had wanted to happen. I loved the dog now, and I wanted him to love me. I'd tried to love and I'd tried to kill, and both had been unsuccessful by themselves. I hoped, and I don't really know why I expected the dog to understand anything, much less my motivations. I hoped that the dog would understand. It's just that if you can't deal with people, you have to make a start somewhere. With animals. Don't you see? Like, a person has to have some way of dealing with something. If not with people, something. With a bed, with a cockroach, with a mirror. Oh, that's too hard. That's one of the last steps. With a cockroach, with a carpet, a roll of toilet paper? No, not that either. That's a mirror too. Always check for bleeding. You see how hard it is to find things? With a street corner and too many lights, all colors reflecting into the oily white streets with a wisp of smoke? A wisp of smoke with pornographic playing cards, with a strong box without a lock? Love with vomiting. With crying, with fury because the pretty little ladies aren't pretty little ladies. With making money with your body, which is an act of love, and I can prove it. With howling because you're alive. With God. How about that? With God, who's a colored queen, who wears a kimono and plucks his eyebrows. Who's a woman who cries with determination behind her closed door. With God, who, I'm told, turned his back on the whole thing some time ago. With someday, with people. People. With an idea. A concept. And wherever better in this humiliating excuse for a jail? Where better to communicate one single, simple-minded idea than in an entrance hall, where it would be a start. Where better to make a beginning, to understand and just possibly be understood. A beginning of an understanding than with a dog. Just that, a dog. A dog. It seemed like a perfectly sensible idea. Man is dog's best friend, remember? So, the dog and I looked at each other, I longer than the dog. And what I saw then has been the same ever since. Whenever the dog and I see each other, we both stop where we are. We regard each other with a mixture of sadness and suspicion. And then we feign indifference. We walk past each other safely. We have an understanding. It's very sad, but you'll have to admit that it's an understanding. We'd made man attempts at contact and we failed. The dogs returned to garbage, and I to solitary but free passage. I have not returned. I mean to say, I've gained solitary free passage. If that much further loss can be said to be gain. I've learned that neither kindness nor cruelty by themselves, independent of each other, creates any effect beyond themselves. And I've learned that the two combined together at the same time are the teaching emotion. And what is gained is loss. And what has been the result? The dog and I have attained a compromise. More of a bargain, really. We neither love nor hurt, because we do not try to reach each other. And was trying to feed the dog an act of love? And perhaps was the dog's attempt to bite me not an act of love? If we can so misunderstand, well then, why have we invented the word love in the first place? The story of Jerry and the dog, the end.